I bought this place for $900. No plumbing, no electricity, just four crooked walls and a roof that barely held. Everyone said I was out of my mind. But they didn't hear what I heard, the quiet, and they didn't see what I saw, a chance to help my son breathe again. He's 8, and for most of his life, every breath has been a fight. In the city, the air was thick with noise, fumes, and stress. Hospitals became routine, meds, masks, machines. I used to sit by his bed at night, watching his chest rise and fall, waiting to see if this was the night we'd have to rush out again. I kept saying, we just need a little more time. But what we really needed was space. One night, after another long coughing fit, I opened my laptop. I wasn't even looking for anything in particular. But there it was, remote cottage, $900, as is. No guarantees, no promises. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't buy it because it was smart. I bought it because I was desperate. I wasn't chasing comfort. I was chasing calm. And what I found in this broken-down cottage changed everything. We lived on the 4th floor of a concrete box, windows that wouldn't open, air that barely moved, and noise, always noise, sirens, horns, shouting, machinery. It never stopped. My son, Ryan, he's 8, and for as long as I can remember, he's struggled just to breathe. They called it chronic pediatric asthma. I called it helplessness, the kind you feel when you've tried everything, but nothing works. We had inhalers, nebulizers, air purifiers in every room, but none of it mattered. Because the world outside our door was poisoned, and it seeped into everything. At night, he'd wheeze in his sleep. I'd wake up every 2 hours, just to check if his chest was still rising. The worst part? He stopped noticing it. That's how normal the struggle became. I remember one day, he drew a picture of himself with a mask over his face, and when I asked him about it, he just said, "That's how I look when I'm trying to feel better." I didn't cry in front of him, but I broke a little that day. We were surrounded by people, yet I had never felt so alone. No one talks about what it's like to feel like you're fighting the air itself. We saw specialists. We followed every rule. And still, he grew weaker, quieter, tired all the time. One night, after a long ER visit, I couldn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at bills and prescriptions. I opened my laptop, not looking for anything, just escaping. And then I saw it. No fancy title, no glowing description, just a headline. Abandoned cottage, $900, sold as is. The photo showed a roof that had caved in at the corner, a door barely hanging on its hinges, vines, decay, stillness. But something about it felt honest, like it wasn't pretending to be more than it was. And maybe that's what I needed. Not perfection, not promises, just a place to breathe. I showed Ryan the photo the next morning, and I'll never forget what he said. He looked at it, smiled softly, and whispered, "It looks like it sounds nice there." The door creaked open with a sound I'll never forget. Old wood, dry, reluctant. It didn't welcome me, but it didn't push me away either. Inside, the air was thick with dust, but underneath, there was something different. It didn't smell like the city. It smelled like time. Every step I took echoed. Not loudly, just enough to remind me that this place had been silent for a very long time. The floorboards whispered under my weight. The wallpaper curled like dried leaves. Spiderwebs danced in the light that cut through a cracked window. And for a moment, I just stood still and listened. Not to noise, not to chaos, but to nothing. It was the most peaceful nothing I'd ever heard. In the corner was a broken chair. Its back tilted like someone had left in a hurry years ago. A single ceramic teacup sat on the floor beside it, dusty, but whole. The walls had stories in them, not the kind people speak. but the kind you feel, like music with no words. I gently brushed dust off a wooden table. The sound was soft, dry, and delicate, almost like paper being folded. Each object I touched responded, not just with feel, but with sound. The echo of my fingers against old glass, the hum of wind pushing gently through a crack in the wall, the rustle of leaves outside, filtering through a broken pane. It was like the house was alive, but not in the way the city is alive, with traffic and lights and urgency. This was alive in the quietest way possible. I walked into what used to be the kitchen. The counters were chipped, the cabinets hung open. And yet, I smiled, because for the first time in years my ears weren't working overtime. They were resting. I pulled open a drawer. It squealed, sharp, sudden, then quiet again. The sink still had rust marks from water long dried up, but as I touched the metal, it rang a little. Just a note, low and fading, but real. Upstairs, the boards creaked louder. The hallway narrowed, the ceilings dipped, and at the end of the corridor, a tiny room. A single faded curtain hung in the window. It moved gently with the breeze, like it was breathing, like it was still waiting for someone to come home. I stood there for a long time, no speaking, no fixing, just listening. And for the first time, I thought, maybe this place isn't broken. Maybe it's just waiting. Waiting to be heard, to be held, to be filled with softness again. And I knew we had come to the right place. On the second day, I found a box. It was tucked beneath the stairs, wedged between old bricks and a nest of dried leaves. A wooden crate, about the size of a child's backpack, heavy with dust, wrapped in silence. I lifted it slowly. It creaked, not the wood, but the memories inside it. When I opened the lid, I half expected nothing. But what I found was a child's world, paused in time. There was a music box, worn brass, little ballerina frozen mid-spin. I turned the key, and it played. Soft, hesitant notes. Cracked by age, but still music. Ryan was nearby, sitting by the window. He didn't say anything. He just listened. And when the song ended, he whispered, "It's pretty, like something from a dream." There were more things in the box. A cloth doll, missing one button eye, tiny shoes with scuffed toes, and a drawing, crayons faded, paper fragile, of a girl and her dog standing under a tree. On the back, in faded ink, Elsie, age 9. I didn't know who Elsie was, but in that moment I felt like I did. She had lived here, laughed here, lost here. This wasn't just a cottage, it was a memory box the world forgot. Later, I opened the hallway closet. The door stuck at first, then gave with a long groan. Inside, a coat still hung, moth-eaten, but someone had once chosen it, worn it, folded it. In the bedroom drawer, a small envelope. Inside, 3 pressed flowers and a letter with one sentence. I hope whoever finds this listens. And I did. Not with my ears, but with my hands, my breath, my stillness. Every object I touched made a sound, not just in the air, but in my chest. I didn't just clean. I listened. I honored. Elsie's world was long gone, but the cottage still remembered her, and now, so would we. We didn't have a crew, we didn't have a plan, but we had time, and hands, and breath. So we started small. I opened the windows, and for the first time in who knows how long, the wind came in, soft, sweet, clean. Ryan stood beside me, his mask covering his nose, but I saw his eyes. Wide, curious. I handed him a brush. He looked at it like it was something sacred, and in a way, it was. We dusted together, gently, like we were waking up the walls without startling them. Every sweep of the brush made a soft whisper. Dust, releasing after decades of silence. Wood, revealing its grain again. Glass, beginning to catch light. I didn't speak much, neither did he. We just listened. To the bristles. To the sigh of old hinges. To the warmth of sunlight sliding across the floor. We swept the floors, and underneath the grime, wood, software pale, kind. It wasn't ruined, just resting. In the kitchen, I scrubbed the sink. Each circle of the sponge released something. A sound, a smell, a memory. Old iron, becoming useful again. Ryan wiped down the windows. He was slow, focused, and when the first pane turned clear, he smiled. "I can see the trees, Mom," he said, all the way to the top. That one sentence was worth every cough we left behind in the city. We cleaned the bedroom together, the one with the curtain that moved like breath. I found old sheets in a sealed trunk, worn but clean. We laid them out, tucked the corners, smoothed every wrinkle. The sound of fabric on fabric, soft, warm, safe. That night, we lit a candle for the first time. No overhead lights, just a flame, flickering, reflecting in his eyes. He laid down, pulling the blanket to his chin. I sat beside him, just listening to the way his breath moved. Not fast, not forced, just easy. And I realized this wasn't renovation, this was restoration. Not just of a house, but of rhythm, of safety, of silence. Each sound we created, a brushstroke, a scrape, a breath, wasn't noise. It was a prayer, a soft promise that this place could be home again. There's a stillness that only comes after the noise has left you. That's what I felt as I sat in the corner of the room we now called his. It wasn't perfect. It still smelled a little like old wood and wind, but it felt clean, safe, ours. I opened the windows just enough to let the breeze through, but not the cold. I hung soft curtains, hand-sewn, second-hand. They moved like breath every time the trees outside shifted. We placed the mattress directly on the floor. No headboard, no clutter, just grounding. I laid out a soft woven rug beneath it, textured, warm underfoot. Ryan pressed his palms against it and smiled. "It's like the forest made a blanket," he said. A small air purifier sat in the corner. Nothing fancy. But when it hummed, it sounded like a cat purring. And he liked that. I placed a stack of books on the windowsill. Stories with wide skies and quiet heroes. No monsters, no battles, just peace. On the nightstand, a glass jar of dried lavender, a tiny wooden horse we'd found in the attic, and his inhaler, still there, but quiet now. Almost forgotten. I brushed dust from the shelf with a soft cloth. The sound, slow even, comforting. Like a lullaby you don't need to sing. I lit a small beeswax candle. Its flame flickered gently, casting golden shadows on the wall. Ryan was already curled under the quilt. He didn't cough, he just breathed. I sat beside him, running my hand over the edge of the bed, feeling the weave of the fabric, the warmth of the moment. And I realized this room wasn't just for him, it was for me too. A reminder that quiet isn't empty. That stillness can hold everything you've ever needed. Every corner of this space, from the curtain that swayed to the floor that creaked just slightly when I left the room, was part of our new rhythm. No alarms, no honking horns, no distant sirens, just breathe, just peace, just home. You don't notice how loud the world is until it finally goes quiet. This cottage, for all its broken pieces, gave us something we didn't know we needed. The soft creak of a wooden step, the whisper of the breeze slipping through clean curtains. The sound of peace isn't silence. It's the sound of a book closing gently, the clink of a spoon on ceramic, the hush of bare feet on warm floors. He doesn't cough as much now. He sleeps, easily, like the air around him is holding him gently. And I sleep too. For the first time in years, there's no panic in the dark, only the rustle of leaves and breath. We built something here, not just a space, not just shelter, a rhythm, a softness. This place was never meant to save us. It had no roof in places, no insulation, no polished floors or fancy views, but it had silence and space and stillness. We didn't need more rooms. We needed fewer alarms, fewer reminders of what we couldn't fix. Out here, every breath my son takes feels earned, and every moment of quiet feels like medicine I didn't know we could afford. The cottage didn't change everything, but it changed us. It taught me that healing doesn't always look like hospitals and machines. Sometimes it looks like morning light on cracked windows. Sometimes it sounds like floorboards that remember your footsteps. It's not just where you live, it's how you live. We came here because my son couldn't breathe. We stayed because for the first time in years, he could. And so could I. If this story touched something in you, even just for a moment, thank you for being here. Sometimes we don't realize how much we're carrying until the world finally goes quiet. And if you're dreaming of your own quiet space, no matter how small, how broken, how forgotten, I hope this gives you a little courage. We found peace in the unlikeliest place. Maybe you will too. If this journey spoke to you, leave a comment. I'd love to know what your dream escape looks like. And if you want to walk through more stories like this, subscribe to Untold Fates. This is where the lost things are remembered, and where quiet lives. Until then, breathe easy and be well.